walking your journey, living your life. And for me, it's just been go, go, go. If you guys have really been paying attention, like, I haven't stopped. I have not stopped. I just keep rising. I keep accelerating. I keep elevating. And it's only when I experience this pushback, right, through the universe, as some people may call it, hatred or envy. Like, I don't even notice it necessarily, but sometimes the universe kind of shakes me up a little bit, and I'm just like, okay. And then I'm able to look and reflect and see, like, what I'm doing and where I stand and what I've accomplished, how it's impacting other people. Because sometimes we don't really see, right? Because I'm just so focused. I'm so driven. And I've been at it. And it's a reason why I'm so driven. It's a reason why that I'm continuously accelerating. Some people don't get it. That's why I wrote a story about it in my autobiography, American Dreamer. It's coming. But some people do not understand what is the driving force. It's like they see your glory, but they do not know your story. And it can be painful when people look at you through a certain lens with envy. They feel envy. They feel jealous. Then, when it goes unchecked, that envy and jealousy turns into hatred, right? And you can pick up on this. And like I said, for me, being a person that I'm so goal-directed, I'm so driven, you have to be, right? Especially to navigate this world, especially as a black person, navigating oppression, discrimination. Like, we know the system is designed against us, right? Having to maneuver through that, you have to have laser focus. And that's what I've demonstrated. That's what I've done. So at times I don't really see, like I said, how my success affects other people. But then I'm shaken up by these encounters that I'm going to share with you guys. I'm going to give a few examples, and I'm going to go ahead and jump off of here. But then I'm shaken up by the universe. I'm just like, then I take a look, and I'm like looking around, just like, I didn't realize that my success and where I am and who I am has this effect on people in that way, right? But we're all interconnected, and I feel bad for them. I feel bad for them, but on the other side of me feeling bad for them, because I really do. I pity them. I've never been in that situation, so sometimes it's hard for me to understand, like, how can a person be jealous? Because I've never been in that situation. And I think that's a toxic way of expressing admiration for a person. Jealousy, right? And to the point of envy and hatred. Like, it's hard for me to fathom. I get it, right? I get it as the way it's expressed is that, yes, it's toxic. So these people don't see themselves in a good light. So it's difficult for them to be able to admire someone else in a good situation, in a positive light, if they don't see themselves in that way, right? And if they don't ever see themselves having the potential to manifest in that way, right? So I can see it through that lens. I get it. But gratefully, thankfully, I've never been in that situation. I just, that's what I say. It's like, it's difficult, and I pity them. I really feel bad. But on the other side of me pitying them, I rejoice. And I feel great because, like I said, it's confirmation. It solidifies where I am, because sometimes, like I say, we're so busy on a go. Like, I didn't realize, like, wow, look what I win. Look where I am. Look who I am. Look what I have accomplished. I don't think people get it. Those who sit in a position of envy and jealousy and hatred, they don't understand that for a person who is high achieving and who has attained so much success, that I put in quotation marks, right? Because success is subjectively defined. They don't understand what a person has went through to get to that point, and what they're continuing to go through. They don't understand what a person is wrestling with emotionally, psychologically. All right, it may look one way on the outside, but they do not understand, right? So that's where you got to break it down. And I wrote about it, right? I think it's no better way to express oneself, especially myself, than in the form of the written word. So that's where my book, American Dreamer, comes in, to lay it out so you guys can see beneath these layers and be able to see the things that I've come through, I've went through, and the journey that I've taken. It has been a long, arduous journey, and it's still going, right? I wear this coat, symbolically speaking, but people just have no idea. People just have no idea, right? So, today, I had this encounter. A couple of encounters, not just one, but a couple of encounters at my workplace. I'm a psychologist. I work for the state. I work at a psychiatric hospital. And someone asked me, someone who I work with, one of my colleagues, he's a nurse, a registered nurse, RN3, okay? And he's a nursing supervisor, so he has like a upper level title. He makes over 6 figures. And he asked me just randomly, like, oh, Dr. Leach, what's your pay grade? And I'm just like, I had to pause, like, hold on, we don't just be like throwing out, you know what I'm saying, pay grades and all of that, right? That's personal, but that's like somebody asking me what's the size of my bank account. Like, hold on. Right? So I'm just like, well, is my pay grade is different because I am not licensed yet, right? And he was just so curious. He wanted to know what my pay grade was. And I told him. And then I said, what's yours? And he tells me that it's a few grades lower than mine. I'm like, okay. I didn't believe it, because I'm just like, I thought that your pay grade was much higher than mine. I mean, he's RN3. He's a nursing supervisor. But I don't understand. I don't understand why people get caught up in comparisons, right? That's a question I would never ask anyone. Like, I'm not concerned about that, but yeah, like, I get it. Some people are very competitive, and I can be competitive, but not in that way to the point where I'm asking how much somebody else is making, right? Because that's really none of my business. So it created this conversation of like him comparing himself or his salary against mine, being I'm a psychologist and he's a RN3. And he's like, oh yeah, I heard that psychologists are getting a raise and we're supposed to get a raise following the psychologists, right? And I'm just like, yeah, I heard about the raise that psychologists are getting, and it's actually increased, from what I understand, by $20,000 a year. It's pretty decent. And he's like, yeah. So mind you, it wasn't just him and myself having, like, present in the moment. It was other ears listening, including a social worker. All right, let me take a sip. Hold on. Including a social worker. And Of course, I have respect for everyone on my team, right? It's not easy, the work that we do in treating severely mentally ill, right? People who suffer from severe mental illness. It is not easy work. So the social worker was listening, but she didn't really respond. She wasn't engaged in the conversation, but she was listening. And how I know she was listening was because after later on in the shift, after she had ended her department meeting call, social work, she got a visitor from another social worker. And they were talking and kind of griping about their complaints being a social worker, and how much work they have, how much work they feel that is kind of put on them that they shouldn't be doing as a social worker. So the title social work kind of is like this catch-all umbrella, and they're assigned all of these kind of miscellaneous tasks, such as like filing applications for a social security card, things like that, right? It's social work. And then they were just talking about how things can be made better within the system. And I was curious. I'm like, okay, people are griping and complaining. What are the solutions? What can be done about it, right? And of course, they mentioned, greater pay. Who doesn't want, better pay? And I had to emphasize, I think what can make a difference across the board, not just in the social work department, but it's people showing that they appreciate and value each and every employee, right? And they both agreed. But I found it interesting, though, how it was slipped in there, this belief that social workers should get paid the same amount as other disciplines, because it's just interesting how that got kind of incorporated in the conversation, given that this conversation was happening after the one I had with the nurse, and I had disclosed my pay grade. And I had to think about it. I'm looking at it from her perspective, right? Putting myself in her shoes. It's like, okay, who wouldn't want to be paid decent, right? But then I had to pause and think, like, wait a minute. I think it's kind of a little bit unrealistic for a person to think that they deserve the same pay as another discipline, right? Another person from another discipline, when you haven't earned it. There's a reason why psychiatrists are pretty much at the top of the ladder. They get paid, I think, the highest of everyone in this totem pole, in this hierarchy here, in which I work in, the system I work in, right? I think the psychiatrists are the highest paid, probably next to the medical doctors. Then psychologists kind of fall under that. Then perhaps the nurses, and then the social workers, and then the therapy aides, and all the other people, right? But I'm like, thinking to myself, like, you didn't put in the work to get that kind of pay grade. It's a reason why doctors, including psychologists, first of all, it's an investment to go to school, an investment of time and money and energy. We're talking about years and years and years of studying, researching, writing papers, and doing unpaid work. 8 years. How many years for social work? Doesn't even cut close. So I'm like, okay, y'all didn't put in the work, you didn't earn the degree to get what we're getting paid. There's usually a correlation between how much we're talking about, like professional license credentials, right? There's a correlation between how many years of schooling and how much a person is going to be getting paid. And the more schooling, the more you're getting paid. Now, of course, it doesn't apply to every profession, but we're talking about those that require degrees. So I'm just like, you think you should be making what a psychologist is making? Not to undermine the work and the importance of the work, because that's the argument that she was given. Like, oh, we do so much work and this, that, and the other. But I'm like, okay, if you did not want to be a social worker and to do social work, then why go to school for social? Like, I don't understand. Right? So I'm looking at it this way, because I feel like people are having epiphanies, and I could be the catalyst for this. Because there's no way that you're going to work in the system and all of a sudden you are having second thoughts about your title, your position, your purpose, and your pay. It just doesn't make any sense. But it could be a good thing, though, that people are recognizing, like, wait a minute, maybe I chose the wrong profession, right? Maybe I should be getting paid more. And it's no surprise that even, because she's actually the new social worker, since I've started there, right? She's the new social worker on the ward that I work. She replaced the previous social worker, who I actually had a good relationship, by the way. But I think he had an epiphany and come to realize, like, wait a minute, I can be doing better. And I said that to him. Like, it's funny because I have the tendency, obviously, to see into people. And I spoke those words to him before he made the decision to do a lateral transfer and transition away from the role of a social worker, essentially, right? I was like, yo, you with your expertise, with your skill, with your knowledge, with your experience, like, I feel like this work is beneath you. I said that to him, right? And then before you know it, he's telling us, oh, I'm transitioning. Now, perhaps he was probably already considering that, but I'm pretty sure with me pouring that into him, that helped influence his decision. He even said, like, oh, wait, what do you know? What do you know? I was like, yo, I know. When I said that, he was like, wait, as if I can read his mind. I knew in advance that he was kind of moving in that direction, moving away from social work, because I spoke it out before it had even happened. But yeah, I think I have the tendency to do that, and I'm realizing that gift and skill about myself that I'm going to shake some things up, and that's exactly what's happening, and it's a good thing, right? To wake people up in a sense, and not just, I think, my colleagues I'm having this effect on, but even the patients, especially. I'm seeing it, like, you have these encounters, right? And basically, it's just letting people know, like, yo, you are greater. You're greater than this. You're better than this, right? Like, what the fuck are you doing? And I wouldn't say it's just me necessarily, but obviously it's the energy and spirit that's flowing through me that's doing this good work. And when people have this, they experience cognitive dissonance. And with cognitive dissonance, you got to do something, right? Because it's going to create confusion. You're going to feel a sense of unease. It's like, okay, you have to make it. It's going to force you to move into a position where you have to make a decision. You have to actually implement change in your life, right? Because you're wrestling with, like, okay, wait a minute. The hell? I'm here in a psychiatric facility, but I know who I am. I've achieved all these great things. Like, what the fuck am I doing here, right? They become restless and uncomfortable with this reality being put in front of them. And so I just find it interesting. And with that encounter I had with my colleague, the social worker, the female social worker, who is having this kind of awakening, like, wait a minute, I should be getting paid. Like, you just not realizing that. I just find it interesting. You just not realizing that. You just not realizing that. But I can sense that there is a degree of jealousy too. Like, jealousy is something you can feel. It's an energy, and it's not just within that dynamic that I experience today, but within other relationships with people that are a part of my team. It's like, listen, I am on a path, and I've said this before, and made posts about this. Yo, if you if this is too much for you, which I realize it is for some people, and it rubs them a certain kind of way. Like I have this energy, yo. Either you're gonna admire me, or you're gonna feel a bit uneasy, right? That uneasiness is gonna force you to look at within yourself, and you're gonna have to change. Or you're gonna feel a certain way, like, wait a minute, what am I doing the fuck with my life, right? Because I'm gonna keep rising. And I said that if you are not comfortable with my success, if my success disturbs you, this page is not for you. I said this online, and this is the truth in real life. It's not gonna, like, you're gonna be annoyed, you're gonna hate me, you're gonna envy me. And I sense that even where I work. I walk in excellence. I have no choice. Coming from the place that I've come from, the things that I've been through in my life, people just have no idea. I'll mention a few. A little bit of self-disclosure, but some of you guys already know. I've been homeless. I've been a panhandler. I've had to sleep in fucking cars and subway trains. I've done that. I've had negative money in my bank account, right? Negative account balance. I fucking didn't know where my next meal was coming from. I've had to stand in line in 20-degree weather at a goddamn food bank, waiting for them to open for over 2 hours. Like, I've been through the trenches. And that's just part of my story, right? So, in putting things into perspective, I have no choice. There is no other way. Like, I have to be great. And that's not where my life story started, because I've encountered certain people, and there's certain people, and I'm pretty sure you guys can relate, that will come into your life, right? Wherever you are in your journey, and somehow you think that that's the beginning, because that's where they began, right? That's where they kind of jumped on into your journey, or met you in your journey. And it's like, no, this is not the beginning of my life. Well, it reminds me of this person. He'll say, like, oh, I remember when you first started, right? And when he met me, it's not when I first started. This person met me when, yes, I was struggling. I was going through a struggle phase, what I was just telling you guys about, during my homeless period. And he actually lended me and my partner at the time $40, which that shit, it would help, but what's $40 to a person who was homeless? You know what I'm saying? And so, in his mind, he's like, yeah, like, I remember when you first start. No, that's not where I started, but it goes to show, like, that's a person's perspective of you, and oftentimes people's perspective of you is so distorted. Because we're talking about, at that point in my life, I had already attained a bachelor's degree. So I definitely didn't start at that point. That person encountered me, right? And saw that I was homeless and struggling, because I had a whole goddamn bachelor's degree, right? I had achieved and attained so much even at that point in my life, up until that point. At that point, I actually had lost it all, right? So we're talking about going through a whole life cycle, essentially. And rising to the top. I was at the pinnacle at age 22 years old, and had then lost everything. And then I'm climbing back up again. Or I was at the bottom, I would say, when this person saw me. But I was on back up, right? Because how low can you go? Once you're at the bottom, ain't no further you can go, right? But so I was climbing back up, and that's when this person saw me, right? Not knowing that I had already been through a whole cycle, damn near a whole life cycle. I done lived it. I done lived life, right? And so when people see me now, and of course, yes, I've attained a good amount of success, and I'm confident, you know, I'm a doctor, I have high social status, and I just find it weird that, you know, just people look at you a certain way, and they see you a certain way, and you feel this energy. Where I work, like I said, there's a hierarchy, and of course there are people, therapy aides, and the system I was working in Florida, we would call them mental health technicians, right? These kind of people at the bottom of the totem pole within the psychiatric system. And so I remember when I was there, I used to be a mental health technician. One of my first jobs in psychology and mental health was a mental health technician at a psychiatric hospital in Florida. And this was before I got my bachelor's degree from Florida State University. I was working at Appalachian Center. And I remember even in my position when I was there, I never, like I said, envy, I don't understand how people envy, but I never was in a position to envy a person because they were in a higher position than me. They were a doctor or whatever. Like, why? If anything, if I saw a black person, which I didn't, I wish I had. I wish I had encountered black psychiatrists or black psychologists then, but I didn't in my experience. But if I did, like, I would, if anything, would admire that person because they are where I want to be. But to envy, I don't understand, and I'm experiencing that now where, you know, these are fellow sisters of mine, right? And just is the envy, right? And the lack of respect, I don't understand. I just don't get it. And I show up respectful to everyone. Even the housekeeper. Well, she's just a friendly, beautiful Indian lady. I love her so much. I show respect to everyone, from her to the psychiatrist to the medical doctor, to the chief, to all the department heads, right? That's just in my nature to be respectful. But yes, I can feel the energy and the jealousness and bickering and talking behind my back, in front of my face, and you know, I feel like I said, part of me pities them because it's like, oh man, they are in a position where they obviously have placed me on a pedestal. I'm in a position that perhaps they will never be because they don't want to put in the work to get to where I am, right? Or they just chose to settle for less. And it's causing them to feel a certain kind of way. You can see it. I'm just like, I'm sitting there. You can tell what, like, the looks. It's just that the looks like, when you know you have done nothing to no one. I haven't done anything to this person. But you're giving me those looks like, nothing but respect. I don't know any other way. And it just takes me back to even when I was growing up, where I told this story before, my other video, one of my earlier videos I made on dealing with hate and criticism, jealousy, and all that. It's one of my very first videos on my YouTube channel. And I just talked about, like, even growing up, I felt like I grew up in a good family. Had both a mother and a father. Grew up in a house. And I went to an all-black school, and I was surrounded by other black students who didn't have what I had. So in a way, I was privileged, right? I didn't look at it as privilege necessarily in that time. I was just looking at, like, this is just my reality. This is my life. And meanwhile, these other kids going to the same school as I did not have that. They were living in project housing, right? With not two parents in the household. Just impoverished situations that they were not happy with. And meanwhile, I'm this straight A student, honor roll student, feeling loved by my mom, my dad, especially my dad. I was a daddy's girl. And I felt like I just had the life, like I had it made. And I had my experience with bullying, being bullied, where I was walking home from school and one of my classmates, and her name was Queen. of all things, came up to me. And at the time, I was skin and bones, y'all. I used to be like so freaking. That's why my mind really gaining weight, because I accept my thickness and the weight that I've gained, because I used to get picked on for being skinny. But she came up to me and she's just like, I don't like you. We're on our way home, right? I'm walking home the typical path of going like the back way down this back street. And before we made the split, where they will go off to the right to go to the housing projects, and I will go off my direction to go to the house where I live, my mom and dad and my sister. She approached me once. She was like, I want to fight you. I don't like you. I looked at her like, now this is 6th grade. I'm like, what the hell did I do to you that you don't like me? Like, I don't like you. I'm like, okay. She's like, I want to fight you. And I'm just stood there like, okay. Bust a move. Because I promise you I'm fighting your ass back. I may be a nerd. And I may be pretty and all of this. And I was like Model S. You know. The high cheekbones, slim, smart. The whole package, right? So I get it. I understand people jealous, but for me, it's just like when you're living in your own shoes, it's just like you're just living. You're being yourself. You're not trying to make people jealous or act like you're better. Or you don't even think, you're not even thinking that way, because you're not even thinking necessarily about how this is impacting other people. It's only people who feel inferior or who are insecure within themselves that make these comparisons. Like I don't make those comparisons, because I'm living my own reality and I'm very comfortable in who I am and have always been, and I've always just been goal driven, future oriented, having visions and seeing myself in a better situation than I am, no matter where I was. Even if I felt that I had attained all this success, always just forward thinking, imagining there could be better, right? I could push myself to achieve more. That's how I've always been. So having my eyes set on a vision, being future oriented, never having time to even look around and make these comparisons like that until I'm confronted. And then it's just like, oh, who I am bothers you. What I'm doing bothers you, right? So it kind of, it's a distraction, I would say. It takes your mind off of what you're focused on, your future goals, and working towards that, pushing towards that. And now your focus is on this bullshit, right? The hatred, right? And the jealousy and the envy. It's just like, okay, here we go once again, right? Here's this bullshit once again, right? So it makes sense why, in so many ways, in different circles, people choose to exclude, right, certain people. When it comes to interpersonal relationships, dating, right, people set a bar or standards. They're like, okay, I only want to date person with these characteristics, right, X, Y, and Z, because they just don't want to deal with that, those insecurities, right, and the comparisons and the competition and the jealousy. And it's like, if you have what I have or more than what I have, then it's a safe place, presumably, to be in with that kind of person, right? And the same thing with creating a social network. It's a reason why people choose to select people, interact with people who are of a certain stature, because they're like-minded, and you don't have to get caught up with people's insecurities in that way, right? You just don't have to deal with that. Some people think like, oh, you think you're better, and this. No, it's not that. It's just, I don't want to have to deal with your bullshit and your insecurities. I've dated down, right? I've had this conversation before where I made a video about hypergamy, women dating up, and a man had the nerve to say, oh, you should just date a blue collar, you should just date down, your standards are too high. And having that discussion, it's just like, are you kidding me? When you look at the guys that I've dated, some anyway, especially the ones I was in a long-term serious relationship with, where I cohabitated, like, yo, I was dating down. Shit, I was dating beneath my fucking potential. You think about it in terms of the SES ladder. Not to say that they weren't well off, right? Because the last guy, yes, he had income, he made money, but we're talking about potential and what the success I have attained. Ain't so much on my level like that, and especially when it comes to confidence. And security, definitely not on my level, because it's more than just that money that determines a person's value. It's how they see themselves. A lot of times, a lot of dudes have low self-esteem and all of that. I dealt with that, right? Who wants to deal with that? Nobody want to deal with that in a interpersonal dating relationship, intimate relationship, let alone just friendship, or you networking with a person, or developing partnerships with a person in terms of business. Nobody want to deal with that shit, right? I've had people reach out to me and wanted to do partnerships and work together. Nah, right? It just really depends, because a lot of people truly, they're jealous. They want what you have, and they see something in you that they do not have. That's just simply just what jealousy is. So, yeah, for me, like I said, I'm very laser focused, so I block out a lot of things, but some things are just so blaring, like it's difficult for you to not see it and not be distracted by it. And I kind of had that experience today multiple times, and I'm going through that, I think, just at my workplace in general. It's weird. It's just like, what the hell? But yet I still rise. That's the funny part about it, because when people are jealous, like, they'll go out their way, right, to try to bring you down to make themselves feel better, or try to, throw an obstacle in your path. And I'm such an alchemizer, an optimistic person, opportunistic person, that everything I use to my advantage. And even when I'm not intentionally trying to, it always works in my advantage, to my advantage. It's like, I'm so protected, the universe has me, and I just feel so confident in that reality and in knowing that. Because I pity for those people. I feel bad because they're doing, like, they are overreaching, right? They're going out their way and doing things that they think is going to pull me down or cause me harm, when really it's a boomerang, and what they set out to do to me is actually inflicting pain upon themselves and damage to themselves. I feel bad, just like, come on. So I don't think that this topic is addressed enough, right? You have people that may throw out the term, oh, you haters, or I got haters, but to really delve deep into it, I don't think it has really gotten its due justice for people who are in certain positions. And I understand why, because when you're just so busy grinding and just being yourself, you're just living, you are in your own shoes, in your own reality. You're so busy in that reality that you don't really have time to slow down and to talk about this experience and what it's like and address it, right? Or even take the time to look at people that you are impacting in a certain way, right? To see, okay, well, how is my being affecting other people? You're not really looking at it like that. Or you just don't have time to do that. But I thought I would take time to do that here. And you guys can feel free to share your comments below. But yeah, it's like, wow. And like I say, the other side to it even though, yes, I feel bad for those people, it's just like I rejoice too, because it's like, okay, thank you for the reminder. Thank you for the confirmation, and thank you for solidifying my fucking reality, yo. Like, god damn. Thank you, because we are all fighting our own battles. Even myself. We're fighting our own fucking battles every day. And I be going through it sometimes. Emotionally. And sometimes I miss it. I miss the reality of knowing and realizing, like, god damn, what the fuck I've done. Not to say I made it, because there's always more to achieve, right? That's how I always see it. It's always more. But it's just like, take a step back and look. Like, is this really what it is? But let me stop. I have the tendency, I can do that, definitely boost my head up. But I look at it as confidence, and some people, it rubs them the wrong way because they lack that. As black people, it's okay to have pride. I know, contrary to popular belief, that white supremacy has instilled self-hatred and internalized racism and insecurities in black people, to the point where they think that pride is a sin. You guys think that having self-pride, pride in your identity, pride in who you are and how far you've come and what you have achieved, oh, that's a bad thing. No. You should be proud. You should walk with your head held high in confidence. If you truly possess that confidence, right? Not to be faking it, but you truly know who you are. You can walk as if you know. You should walk as if you know who the hell you are. And you can look at your reflection, another black person, another black man or woman, and salute. You can tip your hat to them, as you should, right? Because you are walking in your rightful position, and you acknowledge when another person is doing the same. It only becomes problematic if something is crooked about your walk, and another person's walk is straight and confident. That's why you got to protect your energy, protect your space, and see through a spiritual lens, feel through a spiritual lens. I do that, it goes without saying. But I had to just take a pause and share that. I'm just like, wait a minute. What the fuck? Wait a fucking minute. Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me, yo? Yeah, it makes sense now, though. It definitely makes sense. I'm like, okay, I had to take a pause for a second. But, yeah, like, tapping into the pity, like, I do feel bad. And I think with this pity, is more to it than just feeling bad. Like, something should be done about it, right? Like, if you have an emotion, a strong emotion, it should move you to do something, right? And this pity that I feel on the inside for people who are envious of me, it's like, damn, I could do something with that in a constructive way, in a productive way, right? I feel like I can continue just being myself. I can confront it, I can address it, I can have a conversation, right? But I feel like I'm not going to dim my light just to make someone else feel better. So if a person is experiencing discomfort with me and my light shining so bright, I can't help that. I'm not going to dim my light. I'm not going to try to say things to appease you. I'm not going to lower myself to make you feel better, right? I'm continue being myself. I haven't stopped, right? I talk to everyone. I communicate, interact with everyone. But I get it. I can see that I disturb certain people. Certain people can't even look me in my eye. I'm like, yo, I can't be that powerful. I know your girl possessed power, but goddamn, you can't look a person in the eye. Does it hurt that bad? You can't even look a person in the eye. Oh man, but I see it though. Like you can see people's demons, and that's something that I did. I conjured up when I was younger. I remember asking and praying for the ability to be able to see demons in people, to see evil spirits. And I like I said, be careful what you ask for, because it definitely has manifested. And I've been doing this for a while. Just you can see like the certain spirits look a certain way, right? They have a certain form, and you can just see the form, and it's just like it's ugly, yo. It's so ugly you don't even want to interact with it. You don't even want to be around it. It's just like some spirits you can smell. It smells like death, and that's a whole nother thing. I'm about to end this video. But I've said that even to one of my colleagues, like, yo, this shit smell like death nearby. And he's like, I'm like, it smells like death, yo. And he got scared. He was just like, I'm like, it smells like death. I know I can smell death. I'm not talking about after the person has died. I can smell death as it's impending before it happens, yo. Something is about to die. Well, I'm gonna end on that note. Yeah, I was just like, sometimes I don't want to get on here and start talking in a certain way, because I realize that this is a public platform and not everybody can handle this kind of talk, right? It spook some people out. I've done that, and I understand that I do possess certain powers and abilities, right? And it's funny how sometimes people who are gifted, we try to maneuver the world as if we fit in, right? We try to like be camouflage and disguise ourselves and fit in and maneuver, because that shit can be intimidating and frightening people. I've seen it. I've seen my own power, and I even though I try to dampen it, like I'm not saying like dim my light necessarily, but just be smooth so that motherfuckers ain't too alarmed, because I get it, yo. When your energy is so big and so powerful, I know it's a scary thing. I get it. I know it's a scary thing, and I know it's a scary thing because I see it. When you look at a person and you know that they are afraid, you can just look at it like dogs smell fear. You can look at a person like this person is. So sometimes I'm seeing that, and I'm like, all right, it's too much. It's too much for that person. But I want you guys to feel free to share your comments below. Share your experience and how you work with that hatred. Perhaps you're like me and other people. You just keep on stepping and you ignore it. I think for me, sometimes it's difficult, even like my position where I'm at now, because I work very closely with these people. So it's just like, oh, okay. Who I am definitely is not going to change. This is me, right? And I recognize when I first started, like day one, when I stepped on the ward, that I am bigger than this. But I will serve my time and my purpose here for what I need to do in the time specified and the time that I have been called to do it. All right, I'm on assignment. But you can tell when you enter a space or a position, you're like, I'm fucking so much bigger than this. My energy is definitely much bigger than this. I recognize that about myself when I step foot there, right? You enter certain space, you're like, oh, okay. And the space may be bigger than you, and you're like, I can see myself growing in this place, right? Or this position. You feel inspired and motivated. And it's space big enough for you to grow. But when I step in there. I'm like, I'm too big. I'm too big for this. This shit don't fit. This is like the damn shoes I gotta send back, yo, to Africa that I ordered. Check out my last live on the shoes I got from Nairobi, Kenya. I'm like, yo, it's too much feet too big for this. But sometimes you're just too big for certain spaces and you know it. You're like, oh no. You can just read the room and feel the energy and how people react and respond. You're just like, ooh, they ain't gonna be able to handle this. I'm too much. I'm too much. And then there are spaces where you like, okay, hell yeah, this is it. You know it's it because they respect and they honor and you know they praise your energy because that's what's needed, and they can identify with that and they reflect that, right? And it's not these weird looking stares or this kind of stuff, right? Alright, but let me end this video so I can get me some good rest. And tomorrow is going to be an interesting day. Every day is definitely interesting. It comes with its own set of surprises. And I have to say this. I know I'm holding out because I know it's always something that I want to add before I end. But, yo, I had this vision. It came to me actually in a dream. I was counting so much money. Like, the money never stopped. It just kept coming and coming. I'm like, what the hell? It was just a lot of money I was counting. And granted, I don't even touch cash. I used to years ago. But I don't deal with paper money like cash. All my money is in card. And so it was weird, yeah. But in the dream, yeah, like all this cash, I guess it was just to really materialize it and made it more memorable, I guess, because it was just a lot of money. And I keep having like, yo, all this money is coming to me, yo. And I've never been the one to necessarily chase money and be after money, because that's not, I mean, it's something, it's a tool, right? And it's a resource that I know is important to thrive and survive, but it's not something that I would say I value necessarily. You know, that's not what I value. Relationships, I value love, I value family and having children. Those are things I value. But yeah, it's interesting how, yeah, I think when you are aligned though, you have an abundance of things. Things will just come to you, and that's where I'm at. Like, I am at an abundance. So if you're watching me, whether online or in real life, and you feeling some kind of way, because I do have an abundance, and it's not gonna stop. It's like an overflow. I'm grown too big for the space I'm in now. It's an overflow, yo. And will I say I deserve it? Hell, fuck yeah. Some people say I don't deserve all of this. What I do to get all? No, I deserve this shit. People know what the fuck I come from, the things I've been through in life, and how I've endured lack thereof at times. And sacrifice, and yet I still stayed the course. So hell yeah, it's my fucking time. It's my time. So I make no apologies, okay, for the place that I'm stepping into, and for my ascension, for my elevation. Make no promises. I encourage other people. You make no promises, right? You are where you are. You're supposed to be right where you are, and if people hate it, they don't like it, oh well. Family might be your worst sometimes. You know, I get that from them, be the biggest haters, but like, hey, but for me, this is how I reframe it. I look at it like, listen, I know it's hatred, right? But I always have to spin it and make a positive reframe out of every negative thing. I say, you know what, that's just admiration. They love me, just admiration. So when you know that a person loves you, you reflect love back to them. And you have to teach them. That's how you change the energy in any room, right? You change the atmosphere. You manifest. You create a whole new reality. You shake things up because you really are the one in control. It may throw them off a little bit, like, wait a minute, she's giving me back love and I really don't like her. I have envy towards her, but she's showing me love. Confused, and they have no choice but to accept. And when you show love, they have no choice but to reflect that back to you. So, that's how you do that. That's how you do it. But catch you guys later. Love you guys.